Last but not least, our guest speaker for tonight is Rabbi Smith. He's a popular Maggid Shir and much sought after speaker on halachic issues. With that, I welcome Rabbi Smith to inspire us with his words.
Moshe asked him to speak this evening. My question was, tell me about the crowd. So he told me it's people that take davening seriously. I was thinking, I want to come to be inspired. I also want to improve my davening. But I want to thank you for this honor of addressing people that take their davening seriously. I give you somewhat of a take-home message. A quick chizuk whenever you want it in davening, whether you're davening in shul or women davening at home when you are. Almost guaranteed chizuk in your tefillah. Think about the following thought. When we learned the story of Klal Yisrael, we just went through Bereshis, and it always intrigued me that the greatest people had the greatest challenge. The Imois, Sarah, Rivka and Rachel were Akarais, unable to have children. And it's almost a contradiction in terms. Imois, matriarchs that are supposed to build Klal Yisrael can't have children. And many of the others also had this problem. How does the Rabbi subject our matriarchs to such a great challenge? So the Gemara tells us, because the Rabbi loves our tefillah. Mis'avel tefillah shel tzaddikim. But it doesn't seem sufficient. It doesn't seem satisfying. The Rebbe wants our davening, and he subjects the most beloved of Klal Yisrael to this ordeal. I think perhaps there's a more practical message in this Gemara. I want to share with you the most effective shmooze I ever heard about davening, and it wasn't even a shmooze. I attended the bris of a father who waited 21 years for this simcha. And by the bris he said basically the following. I'm not a speaker, but I'm going to tell you why we're here this morning. My wife and I wanted very much to have children, and for the past almost 20 years we tried everything. Every hishtadlus, every schooler, you name it, we did it. Just about a year and a half ago, we went to a tzaddik from a different country, and we shared our plight with him, and he listened with great empathy, and then he said, I have an idea for you. Why don't you daven? And we felt violated. I've been davening all these years. I said, of course I daven. He said, no, I didn't mean that. You told me you tried every hishtadlus, every avenue possible to be able to become parents. Did you daven with the realization that a Yid's greatest hishtadlus is his davening? In other words, you said about your hishtadlus and your davening, but did you daven with the emunah shleima that a Yid's greatest hishtadlus is his davening? And then I gave pause. I daven because it's a mitzvah and it's a privilege, and it has so many other milas. But did I daven with the emunah as my greatest hishtadlus? And I said, to be honest with you, I didn't. So this gadol told me, go home and tell your wife you're starting a new phase in life. You're starting to daven with the emunah that your Yid's greatest hishtadlus is davening. And then he got emotional. He said, well, this Rachanimo bears eloquent testimony that a Yid's greatest hishtadlus is his davening. Precious Eden, this is the message we have to hear about davening. Besides the greatness of davening, the privilege of davening, the dveikus elikim in davening, but a Yid who by his very nature, tzarchei amchi Yisrael merubin, we need so much. We have to know that davening is our best friend. It's the answer to our problems. I want to tell you a story about someone I know We go back a long time ago. I'm not going to say how many years ago. I don't want to date myself. Many decades ago, we were together in yeshiva. And I want to tell you, he's below average. But today, he's a very wealthy, wonderful person that's doing so much good with the tremendous amount of money that he's likely to have. And I used to wonder, like, how did he get there? He's this guy, like, no big deal. 1 + 1 is 3. Like, come on, it's easy. And he made it really big. So once he shared with me a disappointment that he had. Someone asked him point blank, how did you make it? In other words, you're such a loser. How'd you get there? He said, you want to know the truth? I'll tell you the honest truth. Since I'm a child, I aspired to be wealthy. He didn't say the word aspired. He couldn't spell that word. But he said, I wanted so much to be a wealthy person. And every single day I davened that I should become wealthy. That's why I'm so wealthy today. He says, the other person says, come on, can't you tell me the truth? And he said, I was so profoundly disappointed. Again, he didn't say that. But I'm so profoundly disappointed. I tell a believing Jew that I became wealthy because of davening, and he doesn't believe me? But you know something? That's not just a question, that's an indictment. Because the Gemara says, what should a person do? He should become wealthy. It says, well, he has to daven. Li chesed, li hazov. But let me ask you a question, you have to answer it. Do we believe that when we go to work and we put in so much hishtadlus, our most important hishtadlus of the day is the Baruch Aleinu, the Baruch Shem Gimi Panasa? Do we daven with that simple but sacred emunah in the koyach of our tefillah? How much time we spend in chinuch habanim and raising children? But we know the same Gemara says, what's the success with children? It's all about davening. Or to quote those famous words of Brisker Rabbi, asked him, what's the school for davening? He said, Tilim und Trerin. It's Tilim and tears. They once asked a stipler, how is he zoicha? Well, how is a person zoicha to have good children? The stipler says, you want to school them? I don't know anything about schoolers. But I'll tell you what I do. There's not a day that goes by that I don't daven with my Chayimka. Chayimka is a Chaim Kanievsky. I hear the story, and you think probably Chayimka was like 3.5 years old with short pants and playing marbles. The man that asked the question made a quick calculation that at that time, that moment the disciple said those words, Rab Chaim was not Chayimka. He was a Chaim Kanievsky who was 54 years old at the time, who had learned Shas hundreds of times and authored dozens of svarim. And the disciple made this dramatic statement, there's a day doesn't go by that I don't daven my Chayimka, and then you wonder why was Rab Chaim Rabban Shel Yisrael with all this greatness? Because he had a father that understood the greatest hishtadlus is Tilim und Trerin. I'll tell you another story. It's a true story, and in fact, it even happened. There was a woman, her name was Chana, unable to have children, but she had one hope. Her husband was Elkanah, the Gadol Hadar, and she felt pretty secure with him. Until one day, a fatal day, he tells her, basically, I'm as good as 10 children, right? In other words, a very subtle way of saying, let's just move on in life and just forget about it. What would the average woman do when you're given this ultimatum? Basically, like it's all over. You know something? Chana wasn't the average woman. Because Chana knew a Yid is never helpless, a Yid is never hopeless. A Yid has to rebellish from there waiting for his tefillas, Yata Shemei Tefillas Kol Peh. And Chana davened. Oy did Chana davened. The Gemara in Brachos learned Hilchas Tefillah from Chana's Tefillah. We learn the story of Chanukah, of Chana on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, because that's the beacon of hope for the hopeless. And that's the ray of light for those living in darkness. And Chana had a child, Shmuel, who the Gemara tells us was as great as Moshe and Aaron put together. Can you imagine? Whatever that means, as great as Moshe and Aaron. In my mind's eye, I could picture Elkanah speaking by Shmuel's bris. And say, you know what, we're here today because my wife knew the koyach of tefillah. She knew better than I did. And my son Shmuel's eloquent testimony that a yid is never hopeless, a yid is never helpless. But I want to ask you a rhetorical question. What would have been if Hannah would have been that average woman that would have given up? I believe there wouldn't be a tefillas Hannah and there wouldn't be a Shmuel. Because you see, I need tefillah. I am what I daven. But also, I won't be if I don't daven. I just saw Ramban a few weeks ago. Ramban asked a very logical question. Moshe is given the greatest privilege of being the Redeemer of Klal Yisrael, and he refuses because he has a speech defect. The Rabbi says, don't worry, you'll do it anyhow. So Rabbi asked a very obvious question. We find Moshe grappling with the problem. Why didn't the Rebbe Shalom heal him of his deficiency? Said Ramban, you know what? Because Moshe didn't daven for that. And if you don't daven, you don't get it. So look what tefillah is. We are what we daven, and we won't be if we don't daven. Now, of course, we have to have a very mature, intelligent appreciation of davening. Davening is not like, today's groceries advertise. You ring, we bring. There's a very big picture out there. The Rebbe Shalom has his cheshbainis. But let me tell you something very clear. When a person davens and takes a davening serious like you seem to have taken, you feel confident you made the most important hishtadlus. And then Hashem hatoi be'ein of Yasa, the Rebbe knows what to do. But you could feel confident, I did what I was supposed to do, I did all I can. And I realized maybe that's the lesson of the Gemara and Yevamos that we began with. The Rebbe foresaw we're going to go on a long and a dark and a very bitter golos. And the word Tzorchei Amcha Yisrael, our needs take on a new meaning. Golos redefines Tzorchei Amcha Yisrael Merubim. And the Rebbe wanted to give us the refuah before the mak. He wanted to give us the answer before the problem. He said, think about the following question. Why were the Mois Akaros? But think about it from a different perspective. Every single Yid alive is eloquent testimony to the incredible koyach of tefillah. Because Sarah, Rivka, and Rachel are able to have children. But you're thinking, what about Leah? Leah was able to have children. But you probably remember the Rashi as good as I do, that Leah was destined to marry Esav. Yaakov would marry Rachel, Leah would marry Esav. And every Russian would be her grandchild. So what changed? Maral says changing mazel is more difficult than changing nature. How did Leah go from the grandmother, the matriarch of all the terrorists, to the mother of Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Hud, Yisachar, and Zvulun? The Malchus of Yehuda, the Torah of Yisachar, the love of Torah of Zvulun, the Kedusha of Levi were her children. What changed? The answer is, to quote the pasuk, Ve'einei Leah raklois. Because Leah cried her eyes out, I don't want to marry an Esav. I want to have beautiful Yiddish Shadairis. So not only Sarah, Rivka, and Rachel were the product of tefillah, but even Leah, that means every single Yid alive, is eloquent testimony that we're only here today because of the koyach of tefillah. And now when you go into the gullahs, remember that. Rebbe Shalom loves our davening. And don't forget your greatest strength. Or don't forget your best friend, and that's your tefillah, that's your tilman, your trerin. You know, just about a year ago, it was quite common a person would hop onto a jet and fly to Eretz Yisrael and get a bracha from Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky. Now, if you know, his brachas were very brief. It was bracha v'hatzlacha, which was condensed to bu'ah. But imagine you decided it's worth it, which it probably was, I'm sure. You go to Rabbi Chaim, he looks at you with his piercing eyes. You will be an ish matzliach, or ish matzliach for that matter. You would be elated, probably, that you probably would fly back to America without a jet. That's not just a bu'ah. You're the essence of Hatzlacha. You guys are thinking, what does it mean, Ish Matzliach? Chaim, every word was clear. What does it mean, Ish Matzliach? So you probably remember, if you learn Chumash, it's a pasuk of the Torah. Vayhi Hashem es Yosef, Vayhi Ish Matzliach. Yosef just wasn't occasionally Matzliach, he was the essence of Hatzlacha. You know how striking this is? The pasuk tells us, "Vayar Adonov ki Hashem itoy." Even his wicked master Potiphar saw v'chol ashu ois Hashem atzliach biyadav. He was one essence of Hatzlacha. What made Yosef this ish matzliach? So I'm going to tell you now, Pashup Shat in the pasuk based on a Tanchum. That pasuk. Yosef had a habit, before he did something, he davened. Like we all do. But he didn't have to wait for Shabbos to come out. He had a shidduch, he had a business meeting, he would daven. And when he worked in Potiphar, he continued that custom. He had to make supper for Potiphar, he wanted to come out good, so he would mutter a tefillah. And Potiphar noticed he's talking a lot. He goes, "Are you bringing in witchcraft into my house? I don't go for that stuff." He said, No, chas v'shalom. I'm just praying so I should succeed in my work. Says Tanchun, Vayar Adonov ki Hashem itoy. Whatever he did, Shem Shemayim was there, he was davening. V'chol ashu ois Hashem atzliach biyadav. So then I understood. Vayhi Hashem es Yosef, vayhish matzliach. You know why? You know why Yosef was the quintessential Ish Matzliach? Because he was the quintessential Ish Mispalel. And when he had a need, he knew his best friend was waiting for him, and that's the tefillah. I once had to speak to a rowdy group of campers during the summer. Lo Aleichem. Very challenged to get their attention, to hold their attention. I had no idea what I was going to say. So I do what I always do. I daven to the Rabbi, so help me. I want to do the right thing. And I feel very intimidated by these fellas. And the Rabbi gave me this idea I want to share with you. I said, what would you guys do if you hear an announcement, because you guys are doing so well, tomorrow at 12 o'clock, we're going to have a concrete jet. I don't want to date anybody, but I guess it's a coin of the But it was something that could take a person there in Israel in a matter of hours. And we're going on a trip because you guys are doing so well. What would you guys think? Total war breakout, you know, like teenagers think. Sure enough, 12 o'clock to the dot, the jet lands on the campgrounds, right in the lawn. And you guys hop on, and you're about to take off. And the pilot says, "This is not color breakout, I'm telling you the truth. This never happened in my career. I never forgot to refuel, but I just didn't refuel. We can't go anywhere. I already radioed the technician. He's going to be within an hour. Going to be up in the air. So don't get out of the plane. I don't want to lose time." Now you're stuck for an hour on a plane. Rowdy boys, what would you do in that hour? So he started thinking. Captivated. I said, what I would do? I would think of this thing because I find it mind-boggling. This jet, this Concorde, is worth millions of dollars. I don't know how much fuel costs, but it's a tiny fraction of the cost of the jet. And this powerful jet is basically paralyzed because it's missing fuel. Now, when you put the fuel in, which is almost invisible, we don't even see it, you reach such heights, you could go flying to Eretz Yisrael. That's the message of tefillah. Miyala Bahar Hashem also want to reach heights. Miyakum Mimkaim Kochoy. You know what the answer is? Realizing a Yid's fuel is our tefillah. Our tzlacha with children, our panasa, our learning depends on our trying occasionally for atachoining le'adam das. And Klal Yisrael's secret, the Netzach Yisrael lo Yishaker is the koyach of tefillah. And every single Yid is an Eidus Ne'emana to that. And let me close with one story. This story was said by Chofetz Chaim, one of his greatest Talmidim of Shul Hamana. And to be honest, I wouldn't believe it had he not said it. But he said he has a Kabbalah for this story. The Kilega was the Rav in Pozna. And there was a Yid that was stricken with a very, very difficult illness, and he was dying. There was no hope. Kilega felt very bad about it, but there's no hope. What can you do? Just then, the king's personal physician traveled through Pozna, and Kilega thought of an idea. Let me speak to the doctor. Maybe he has an idea. So he made an appointment, and asked the doctor, what would you do in such a situation? And he told him the illness. He goes, this illness is incurable. Okay. Then as an afterthought, Kilega said, by the way, what would you do if the king had this ailment? The doctor laughed. He said, why do you ask me that? I don't know. I want to ask you that. Well, it's interesting, because the king had this very ailment. So what do you do? I say it's incurable. Well, what we did you can do. There's a certain bird in a very distant country, someplace in the woods, in the forest. If you catch it live and slaughter it and feed the patient, he will be healed. But if you're missing any of those ingredients, it has to be from that bird, it has to be captured, slaughtered, it's not going to work. We sent thousands of troops searching for this bird. We found him. You can't do that. The lady said, oh, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I walked out. I went home. Went into his study, unlocked the door, and started out. I said, Baruch Shalom, you're a Kol Yachol. You can do everything. Do I have to go to a distant country to find the bird? Baruch Shalom, this man needs a refuah. Please send me the bird. And a while after he starts davening, he heard a commotion, a noise on his roof. So he told Shulchan, check up what's going on the roof. So he went on the roof. He said, nothing much, there's a bird there. He goes, well, grab the bird. And he grabbed the bird. Vega shechted it, fed it to the patient, and he recovered. Vega had the foresight. He took the feathers and gave it to the members of the community. You should remember what the koyach of tefillah is. Now, Tyre Yid, what would you do if out of my pocket I pulled one of those feathers? I don't have a feather. But I have a greater testimony of the koyach of tefillah, and that's each and every one of you. Klal Yisrael is here today because of the koyach of tefillah. Every single Yid is the greatest raya of the koyach of tefillah. Before you start davening, look at yourself, look at Klal Yisrael with pride, and realize the Baruch was waiting for our tefillahs. Let our collective tefillahs be oila in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we'll be zoyful to the Gula Shleim B'Mher B'Meinu Amen. Thank you all for listening.